right? Keep this, I guess. Yeah, I haven't registered a Dragon Rage's Channeler in a long time. I guess I did it in the Grixis version of this deck. Shuffle the land away. I'll get a tapped Stomping Ground, I think. Okay, that's obviously a great draw. Okay, have a heat for that. Can definitely be bad to draw like too many Unearths early in this deck, but it is certainly a good late game value engine. I think if my opponent plays Stoneforge Mystic, I might heat that instead of the Sentinel, so we can just go ahead and take one. Oh, my opponent kept to one lander. Yeah, it is true that it's like it cycles. You know, I mean, cycling for 2 mana early is not where you want to be at all, though. You can also just discard him the Seasoned Pyromancers and like any other spell. I might keep one Unearth though. I think with the Seasoned Pyromancer in play, that kind of makes sense. Okay, we do Delirium for these Channelers. Okay, I wonder if they had that Saga in their hand and they didn't want to play it, so they drew a land. That's probably not correct. That could have been what just happened, though. They get a Cauldron complete. If their whole turn is just putting Cauldron to play next turn, I think we're okay with that. I could potentially leave the Seasoned Pyromancer back to chump block a Cauldron. I could also just draw Fatal Push. Could also just draw the Fatal Push, huh? So I'd really love to surveil something into the yard to Unearth for next turn. But we can also just try to surveil into a spell. That is a spell. And I'll keep this. What's nice about the Heat is that if they give us a target for Unholy Heat, that can surveil something into the yard for the Unearth. But they just back it in. Does the Power get exiled by Cauldron? No. The Cauldron only exiles the creature if it was big enough to survive the combat. Since Cauldron, it says whenever it's dealt combat damage by a player by the Cauldron token equipped creature, it gets exiled. But that's a trigger that goes on the stack. So if the creature is already dead, that trigger doesn't resolve. It doesn't get exiled. I do think it's weird that it works that way, but that is how it works. Yeah, we saw the new Esper Charm. I thought it was pretty cool. I think we're just going to play 4 Thoughtseize to hit Urza, Thought Monitor, Cauldron here. And I might trim on Tarmogoyfs in this matchup because they're probably going to bring in a lot of graveyard hate. Maybe 1 Unearth, 2 Tarmogoyf. Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't familiar with that interaction because it is really weird and unintuitive, but just like, you know, Modern is definitely like a format of weird, unintuitive interactions, and just like incorporating them into your knowledge is pretty important. I've been actually wanting to do a deep dive on the weird, unintuitive interactions in Modern. Because like I can't remember who wrote it, but there used to be like a really good article. It was like 10 or 20 like tips, like weird, like, you know, just weird interactions that like you should know as a Modern player. That like I thought was really helpful when I was first getting into it, like back in 2014, 15, and I've been kind of wanting to. I think that kind of thing maybe needs an update. Because like back then it was like Electrolyze, Spellskite, that kind of stuff. Okay, Thopter Foundry. Yeah, Voidwalker Living is a good one. Cause I should probably be making a little bit of a list, huh? Dude, we hit Portable Hole. All right, our luck is turning around. Officially turning around. I hit the Thopter Foundry here. Okay, just packs it in. Yeah, I think they can't Boltagoy, but because of something, a horrible invention, layers, a horrible social construct that don't make any sense, layers. Dryad actually gets to keep the ability. Playing its hammer. I guess for that one, I may need somebody to like, I don't know, figure it out. Spellskite K command, yeah, that. Oh yeah, Spellskite, Spellskite K command, Spellskite explosives, always the hot topic. I'm gonna let this happen, and then I think I'm gonna Thoughtseize them this turn. Not sure. I think they're playing more of an affinity list, and they're obviously light on mana, so I think just trying to take a payoff here makes sense. Can graveyard that. Thoughtcast, Thought Monitor. Shoot. I guess I'll take the Monitor. And regret not taking this trade. I don't think Dryad keeps the ability. It's the land that keeps the types. Okay, that's good to know. It's just so weird and unintuitive. Like, I don't know. These are the kind of things you always have to memorize. Or at least for me. Like, I think even judges probably have to memorize them too. Like, or maybe they know the rules well enough that they can work it out. But it's probably like more helpful to just memorize the answer to that problem than have to work it out every single time. Ending in Chalice, yeah, that's a good one. Inkmoth and Hammer reactivate. That's definitely a really important one too. I think this will be a good article. I don't know when I'll do it. These are the type of articles that you have to like stew on for a little while. Ending Thalia. Yeah, ending / Thalia Chalice. And then maybe March also. Because March also interacts like a little bit differently. Alright, Saga is definitely a good pickup for my opponent here. I think I'm pretty interested in trying to get Delirium. I only have one basic mountain. So let's go Blood Crypt. Obviously pretty painful, but Blood Crypt, Heat the Sentinel, get Delirium, and then ideally like surveilling a good creature to unearth would be really ideal. Sorry for saying ideal so many times, but would set us up good for next turn. We could also maybe just unearth another channeler, which could be fine, but we will take the Seasoned Pyromancer in the yard. If you do K command with Spellskite, yeah, I don't know if I would want to put Spellskite in the article because Spellskite is just super obscure these days. But, like, I don't know. Maybe it's good for, like, you know, the history of the format or whatever. Yeah, half the article is dressed down interactions. Yeah. Like, I just, like, Spellskite's just, like, not that relevant of a card is kind of the thing. I don't think, yeah, maybe sprinkling in some of the classics can't hurt. Or maybe I could, like, in the intro of the article, talk about how... talk about how that was like an inspiration, you know, for me wanting to write this, like those kind of interactions. I need to also figure out which article it was. I want to say it was a Reed Duke article, but I think I'm probably misremembering. But it was an old Channel Fireball article. Curve it out pretty good. Yeah, it definitely feels like a Reed article too, but I'm going to graveyard that, where if my opponent gets a relic, I'm going to really want something else. Yeah, and maybe I'm only like thinking it's a Reed article because it sounds like a Reed article. Okay. Yeah, despite our surveils, couldn't really find anything super relevant. Hopefully they just don't have a main deck relic. This isn't the same opponent 2 rounds in a row. Okay, no, just the same matchup. They do have a main deck relic. Demon Lich Prismatic Ending? I mean, I don't feel like there's like much to talk about there, because Demon Lich just lets you cast any spell like normal. Can you talk about like Dreadhorde Arcanist Prismatic Ending, which is also not very relevant. Thoughts on the new Esper Charm? I think that card's interesting. Like it's like probably more fun than it is good, but yeah, I think this is it, Con Man. It's by Karsten, okay. 10 useful interactions every modern player should know. Fix your mana with Blink Buff Nexus. So that you can turn on Mox Opal. Awesome. Reband your own spell. Love it. Vendilion Click in response to Through the Breach. Dodge Chalice of the Void with Engineered Explosives. That one's still pretty relevant. Blocking Ed's Champion with Skullcrack. Still relevant, but now like Sanctifier and Vec. Well, you can't... Oh, killing a blocked. Killing a blocking, not blocked. Win the game with Conflagrate despite Spellskite. Yeah, the Spellskite interactions. Remember to respond to Word of Invention or Court of Calling. Activate Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin in their draw step. Love that. Love that. Flashback the Snapcaster Mage target later that turn. I love this too. Pretty common line against... It references Ooze, but also important against discard spells. Survive a seemingly lethal scapeship with Fulminator Mage. Beautiful. Beautiful. I feel like there may be this is maybe not the only article on this topic, but... I think this is the one I was thinking of, so thank you. 10 more. Okay. Know your state-based effects for Death Shot Tarmogoyf. Yeah, very important. Bounce Bedlam Reveler in response to trigger. Oh, awesome. Awesome interaction. Yeah, I actually love blocking here. So that I can try to get Delirium. Just force them to pop their relic. And then I'm going to have a creature in the yard. I'm going to need to draw a non-creature spell. Oh, they're just letting the trade happen. Yeah, I think that attack was probably just pretty bad then. Okay, so I guess we just go... Dash Ragavan. Let them block as they will. And then post-combat we probably get Delirium. Target your opponent with Ancestral Vision? What? Most card draw spells, including Sarah Vision's Up, Chromatic Star, just say draw a card, but Vision allows you to target a player, and sometimes it's best to target your opponent. This is particularly useful against Ensnaring Bridge by filling up their hand, but you may just liberate your creatures from being ensnared. Suddenly you attack for the win. In control mirrors, targeting your opponent allow you to win the top decking war. Control decks often have more answers than threats, which sometimes means the other player can win dealing 20 damage. In such cases, you'll often see players cap their libraries to get to the late game, and targeting them with Ancestral Vision is a solid path to victory. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love Frank. Frank's so cool. Spire Speed, thank you for 12 months. Appreciate you. I played against Frank at a GP one time, and we were playing the Gruul aggro mirror match before Gruul aggro was like super popular in Standard, and like he was really cool. We sat and talked for like a long time about the deck and the matchups. He crushed me. But it's also like a standard mirror match, you know, just kind of tough to like do much. I also think my version wasn't like well built for the mirror, but like we both kind of commented on how we didn't expect to play the mirrors. Okay, we can keep this. This gives us Delirium next turn. Kind of sneaky Delirium too. Alright, take Dental Cyst to not die. Reality Chip and Min-Might totally fine. Wait, why did they play the Min-Might? Cannot respond to mana abilities like Grove and Chromatic Sphere. Target yourself with Lightning Bolt or your own creature with Fatal Push. Yeah, definitely important to know. Shuffle effects Goblin Guide. Go under Ensnaring Bridge. Bounce modes against Liliana. Cascade happens before Bloodbraid Elf resolves. Naturally, I had to end this article with one of the two recently unbanned cards. Wait, Bloodbraid Elf was banned in Modern? It's awesome. Classic articles. I'm excited for the... Oh, I got... No, the announcement's on... It's on Thursday, right? I don't know that I would say that I'm excited necessarily, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, but not like expecting it to be good news. I don't know. We'll see. It's hard to expect anything. Okay, so I sided like this last round. What are we talking about? Tomorrow, in 2 days, there is an announcement from Wizards that is going to be regarding changes to organized play, or like, you know, ideally making a new system. Or then I think what most people are, the main thing most people are hoping for is like a return to paper GPs. Like ideally paper GPs for the second half of this year and going forward. So, and then obviously like beyond that, people are pretty interested in a return to the Pro Tour, a Pro Tour system, something like that. But I don't think that's very likely. I don't know. Maybe it is likely. Who knows? That's what people want. I think. Is that what they're going to give us? Who knows? That's what I want, at least. I don't know if I should speak for everybody. I might keep this second channeler for next turn after we play the Bauble. Maybe it's better to do it now to try to double spell, though. Okay, that does let us double spell. The announcement is this Thursday. You okay, Athena? I think you can really see her. You can maybe see her tail. She's underneath the collage down there. For whatever reason, she's been like in the spot like behind the collage lately. Just sitting there chilling. Oh, maybe I should have got Swamp with this and then Blood Crypt with the other one. It's probably correct, actually. I'll graveyard this for Delirium so I can block this turn. I think it's going to be pretty important. Opponent's pretty flooded too, which is good, obviously. PTs are coming back. I mean, so like they already... so that's the thing, though. Like, PTs already exist. They're set championships, right? Like, they do exist. Obviously, like, people are interested in, like, some kind of, like, players club. Alright, probably gonna go Grudge, Flashback Grudge here. People are interested in, like, you know, a players club, a, you know, more of a comprehensive, like, you know, invite system, more prestige. And I also think people are really interested in, like, returning to calling it the Pro Tour. I guess I could have main phase the Grudges to play around top deck Thought Monitor, huh? And like kind of return to that, you know, general sense of legacy and history that the branding of the Pro Tour kind of elicits, right? That's at least something I'm interested in. I mean, they're going to be called PTs and paper again. Well, I hope you're right. It's kind of tough for me to like just, you know, blindly trust, you know, random chatter, right? But I do hope that you're right. I am aware that there's like a lot of rumors going around, a lot of like speculation, but there's always just like people like saying how things are going to be before these events, and like I know some of that is like leaks and some of that is copium. It's just kind of hard to tell, like sift through it all, you know. I think I'm playing a Grist this turn. Red Clap with the 17 months, appreciate you. Our forward welcome our Hasbro overlords are ready to be utterly disappointed by the organized play announcement. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I of course, like most people, feel like these kinds of announcements and organized play is really where we've been let down the last several years. So it's just kind of hard to like hope too hard. I would love to, you know, be pleasantly surprised, but I'm just trying not to get my expectations up too high. I will say that it's kind of, I think it's hard for things to be worse than they are. Kings can always be worse, but they're just like so bad right now. Like, I just don't know how much worse they can get, you know. Okay, so Grist is down. So we're gonna kill the Urza here. And then maybe I just Seasoned Pyromancer. Get some blockers, then Grist can come down to minus next turn. Some more mana. When are we supposed to get announcement? This Thursday. Oh, are we dead to this? We go to 1. It's definitely like probably their best top deck. Or I guess the Thought Monitor into that is better, huh? They're gonna be PTs and paper again. They're gonna be alchemy, and the judge will have to do all the computerized actions. Dude, can you imagine a paper pro tour again? I would be so happy. Like even if they call it the booster pack tour, just as long if it's in paper, I would just be so happy to see it. Okay, the min might attack is really weird. Yeah. Maybe less focus on historic for tournaments. Like I think you can still do arena tournaments, but like I think people would be really happy to see a paper Magic PT again. I know I would. Okay, let's be done play for game 3. Yeah, it's just like I think one big thing that Wizards missed was like, yes, Arena is better to watch than Magic Online, but but neither are better to watch than paper, you know? I don't know. Like, I do think that having some Arena tournaments is good for the game, especially because it's like new players get into Arena, and then like you get them enfranchised by playing Arena tournaments, and then like they eventually can start to play, you know, more paper tournaments in theory, right? We'll be excited if it's a standard paper PT. As someone who has, I played 2 standard paper pro tours, or 3, and then like 2, yeah. Every pro tour I've played, no, that's not true. I played Legacy at one of them, but yes, I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled. I think I have to keep the land here, even though it's like maybe the worst land of the deck. It's a really good hit for them. All right, come on, big draw step. Alright, we'll take that. Seasoned Pyromancer. I know we don't have green mana. I could just discard the Goyf. The Goyf's not that good into the Relic anyways. Let's see what we draw. Bauble's an amazing draw here. We can theoretically get Delirium. Or like threaten to get Delirium. I guess just tapping the Relic is basically always gonna stop us from having it here, right? Well, either way, I'm graveyarding that. Yeah, we're just always one type away here with the tap. Babe Biscuit, thank you for the 6 months. Appreciate you, buddy. Paper Magic is more skill intensive. I mean, as someone who's played a lot of both, I would say that there are different skill sets involved. Like I do think that like bluffing and reading bluffs is like a cool and fun and part of paper Magic that is like generally underexplored. Yeah, I would say paper Magic is like a marginally more skill intensive, but I don't know. I don't think it's like really that big of a difference, to be honest. Attack with Seasoned Pyromancer, I think. Maybe it's better to leave it back to Chomp. But then I think we just cycle this. And feel pretty bad. Feel pretty bad to draw another land there. The amount of Bauble paper triggers missed in paper affirms this. Yeah, I don't know. Like, is remembering your triggers skill? I don't know. Like, maybe. Like, I would usually equate skill with, like, understanding a matchup and a deck's dynamics and game plan, play patterns. And I don't know how much I count remembering triggers to be skill, but maybe I'm saying this as someone who's missed a few triggers, huh? It is? Maybe, yeah. I would probably say it's, like, you know, not that important of a skill. Maybe, maybe not. Skill isn't the only part of winning. Yeah, of course, but Like, yeah, it's a mental tax. It's something you have to do. But if it's a skill, then like, you know, it's the most boring skill there is, maybe. Like the Wandering Mind Reanimator deck, and then like, yeah, like Crimson Vow was very like the timing was really good because there was like no set, like every set before Crimson Vow was really good to brew with, but then Crimson Vow there was just like nothing. Like there was Wandering Mind and like freaking Edgar Markov. it was like the worst set for brewing since like M20 or M19 or something. I don't know. Not even then. Worst set for brewing in a long time. And so like it was really good to like just be doing the trophy race during Crimson Vow. Oh, he did have Epicure, yeah. It had Epicure, Blood Fountain, but like Doomwake was like all over the Epicure decks. So I just kind of let him have those. I think I'll graveyard this for Delirium and a possible Unearth. Born of the Gods. That was so long ago. Surely there's been one more bad modern brewing set since then. I don't think that you'll probably play both. I don't really love either of the new charms. The Esper one's better, but the Esper charm is not like, it's not that good. It's pretty versatile. It probably will see some play playing against Eldrazi-tron, but it's not like a super stellar card, to be honest. Rivals of Ixalan. Yeah, Ixalan is my least favorite block of all time. Like I just liked everything about it. I just liked the flavor, the cards, and I guess like maybe the gameplay and standard was fine, but I wasn't a huge fan either, to be honest. Known Ixalan hater, Aspiring Spike. I think I'm going to Seasoned Pyromancer here just for max damage. We get Delirium. We grow the Goyf by 2. Just get to hit them for 7. Have a maybe lethal next turn. I think we're 1 short. 7. Yeah, we're 1 short. That's Eldrazi-tron, though. That's Eldrazi-tron. But Wild Growth Rocker, yeah, I didn't like that deck very much. I did qualify for a Pro Tour during Ixalan, I think, playing. It was Team Unified Standard, which was actually a really fun format. And like we won the tournament when we realized that you could play blue-white gifts and Esper control because you didn't actually need there were no overlapping spells with gifts. And wait, they got bridge? Okay, we win if we hit a land off the Surveil. Or just draw a fetch land. Let's go. Let's go. We won when we realized you could play blue-white gifts and Esper control in the same Team Unified deck, and then the other third player played mono red, and we won the RPTQ because of that. Okay, so up a game against Etron, obviously bringing in the 4 Fulminator Mages. Liberator's probably okay. I don't know that I necessarily want it. I think I want to cut the push, obviously, cut the Inquisitions. Probably go down to Grist. I don't know that I want Ancient Grudge or Outland Liberator. I guess having outs to Chalice is probably pretty important, but should those outs be Grudge or Liberator? Is it possible I'm undervaluing the new charm? Obviously it's possible. I read the card one time and I've been streaming the whole time. I'll continue to think about it, but like let's not pretend like there aren't plenty of there are plenty of great things to be doing at 3 mana in Modern. And this card will always compete with Archmage's Charm, and Archmage's Charm is probably going to be better than this card in most decks. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, it's always possible I'm misevaluating a card. But it's like, you know, as good as like, you know, the first mode of bringing back a multicolor permanent mana value 3 or less, that's pretty cool. And then you get an eliminate and you get a counterspell. Like, I think the card is good, but it's just like it's good, but it's also an Esper colored charm. So like that kind of inherently makes it fringe playable, right? Like like three color charms in Modern like just don't go in very many decks, and so I think that these cards are really going to be just kind of inherently fringe playable. Okay, Ragavan's probably our best draw here. My opponent says they're paying costs. Could be better than Archmage's Charm in a non-blue based deck. Yeah, again, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like it's playable but fringe playable. Like you're just not going to see, these cards that come up that often, because it's three colors. Not too many decks are going to want to play them, but we'll be trying them out, of course. Okay, love to see Urza's Tower here. Let's get a Stomping Ground, probably. Yeah, Esper 12 Charm. That's quite the title. Esper 3-drop Tribal. And that's kind of the other issue, right? Is like the mode of returning the multicolor permanent wants you to play like a lot of three mana multicolor permanents, right? But you know, the reality is that you're kind of like you're very hard capped on the number of 3-drops you can play in Modern. You can't just play like you can maybe play like 10 or 11 max in some lists, but it's really hard to play many more than that. And because I just feel like there's very much this hard cap, it's just kind of hard to imagine like that this is like a really amazing combo you can build around. That is true. The Triumphs alongside them does make them more castable. I agree with that. So next turn we get to go Channeler, Tarmogoyf, Unearth, Fulminator Mage, which is a pretty good turn. Those new terms are kind of doo-doo. I think the Esper one's okay. I think the Grixis charm's not that good. It's cool though. Like, I like the card from like a card design perspective, from a Grixis fan perspective. 4 color. Yeah, you could play. Yeah, General Rockrick is definitely an interesting avenue to explore too. I think I'm gonna hold the Thoughtseize. Out of interest, first attack with Goyf, and then Fulminator is better. No, you have to Fulminator first to get to make the Goyf not trade with the Reshaper, right? I guess maybe they block and so if I graveyard this, it gives me Delirium and it grows the Goyf. It also would give me a good play to play next turn, but I think growing the Goyfs and getting Delirium is probably just a little more relevant. I do think that this turn, it's probably good to see if they block or not, and then Fulminator Mage a different land if they get that off the Reshaper. They hit a forest. Weird. Oh yeah, the Eldrazi decks are playing Forest and are playing Balagad Recovery, and I literally have no idea why they're doing this. Oh, I guess they could have sacked the Blast Zone in response, and they just didn't. That would have been really bad if they did though. Mazemind Tome to the rescue. Yeah, I don't understand the Balagad recoveries at all. Can anybody, maybe is Kaya in the chat? Maybe somebody can offer some insight. I think does Grist count as a Planeswalker in the yard? It is counting it as a Planeswalker. Is it supposed to though? Okay, that's another type. Alright, we'll just leave them with 2 pair. I'm here, I tried it, I didn't really like it. Yeah, I was just wondering, do you know like what the idea is? Because I don't even like really understand what the idea is. Like is just Balagad Recovery just good? Is that the idea? Spike. Do you think that Modern Horizons 2 is going to ruin Modern? Do you think there's going to be more Hogaaks? Do you think there's going to be millions of banned cards? Obviously, I had no idea what was going to happen. But just, yeah, no banned cards. Gameplay is really interesting, dynamic. Metagame changes a lot of new decks. Obviously, not perfect. Obviously, not everybody likes it, but I really liked it. My favorite set of all time. Recovery itself was surprisingly decent. Made a good late game top deck. Really, when you need it, makes some sense. I guess that's fair. Yeah. I don't really have almost any E-Tron experience, so I appreciate your insights, Kaya. I guess we bauble ourselves on turn 1. Shuffle that, grabbing a Blood Crypt. I think they could have left the elementals out. Yeah, I mean, it's just like so easy to nitpick, right? It's just like no magic set is perfect. There's always problems with it. Ragavan's not a well-designed card. Urza Saga's not a well-designed card. Like maybe Fury should have done 3 damage instead of 4. I don't know. Like it is really easy to nitpick, and like obviously you can. But I'm personally really happy overall with the way it turned out, especially when like the expectation, like it was absolutely just the expectation that MH2 was going to ruin the format. People were just like convinced that MH2 was going to be the end of Modern. Like the amount of doom and gloom was kind of unparalleled. I think I like leading on Thoughtseize here because like if they don't have a Cascader, like there's a good chance that they just don't have a Cascader, and you want to be able to hit something here. Can I expand on why Ragavan and Saga are bad designs? I think they both do a little too much for too little investment. They're also both like really weak to things. Like Saga's weak to a lot of hate. Ragavan's weak to cards like Midnight, Ornithopter. But I don't know. I didn't like really realize this was like a super hot take. That the cards were just both a little too pushed. I think I'll wait a turn on the Goyf. Just take one of their cyclers here. Cedo, thank you for the Twitch Prime. Appreciate you. Yeah, I don't feel like this is a super hot take that Ragavan and Urza Saga are just like a little too pushed. Like Urza Saga probably shouldn't have made a token on chapter number 3, and Ragavan probably shouldn't have dash, or you know, shouldn't have something. And I think that with like if you make those changes, like the cards are like a lot more reasonable, a lot less polarizing. I'm not sure a little too push is the same as bad design. Well, it can be. Like there is a difference between bad design and a little too pushed, right? But like usually a little too pushed, I think, is like criticism of design. All right, good old Thoughtseize bug. I guess I could maybe have tried to kill them with the Goyf. Just seems so unlikely. Yeah, a little too pushed is design criticism, but that's not the only way a card can be poorly designed. I mean, I think it's kind of weird to want to keep all the 3-drops here, but they all seem pretty good in this matchup. LSV did a good talk about design and power in his last cube draft. Really interesting. Yeah, LSV, like, I don't know, the man, like, as I do this a lot where I have like really strong opinions on like play design, but Luis is just like, obviously he like does play design for a living too, and he's got so much more experience than I am, and like pretty recently he like really hard changed an opinion of mine where like he talked about like how like balance is not the end all be all for card design, and like fun is ultimately like a lot more important than balance, which was not an opinion I had until I just heard him talk about it, and he just absolutely changed my mind. So I do definitely agree that Luis is like probably the best person you could possibly listen to talk about design and balance in any game. Fire design is bad. I mean, so here's the thing about fire design is just the boogeyman. It's lost all meaning. Like, fire design stands for fun, interactive, replayable, and exciting. That's all fire design is like having those attributes. And I think a card having those attributes is fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody, like, those are all good attributes for a card to have. Like, fire design is just a blanket term for cards I don't like, I think. It's one of those things that I think has just completely lost all meaning. I'm just gonna cast that here. Kind of like Maverick. I don't know. I just generally think that I think people need to stop like blaming fire design for everything. One, because I think magic design has been really good for like the last year and a half. I think that there was a long era of like design mistakes, but I think things have been good for a while at this point, and we can stop just blaming the fire design boogeyman for everything at this point. Okay, I can't help myself. Can't help myself. Like I'm trying to remember the last time there was like really big mistakes was Kaldheim, when you had Tybalt's Trickery and Valky, and like I even think that both of those were like okay mistakes to make. Like Tybalt's Trickery, like they had a lot of safety valves put onto it that I think most people initially looked at and like, yeah, this is a fine way to balance the card, and it just wasn't because of the cascade spells. And then I don't think people, and like also like the Valky should have been the Tybalt should have been the front half of Valky, but it was the backside for flavor reasons, and that ultimately ended up being like pretty bad. But I also think that was a somewhat easy mistake to make. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I guess we'll play a second Goyf. MDFDs are awful design, maybe. I mean, another thing is it's like, it's just kind of so easy for like designs to be really cool and standard, like the MDFCs, and then like they just kind of incidentally become kind of broken with weird old cards like Undercity Informer, Balustrade Spy, Goblin Charbelcher, Charlotte's Agent, Violent Outburst. Violent Outburst in particular is like one of this is like a top 5 modern card, and just like nobody ever gives it the credit it deserves. But like Violent Outburst has been one of the best. It was the best card in Modern when Valky was legal, or when the Cascade rule was different, and it still is one of the best cards in the format. Better than Charlotte's Agent, and obviously it's good. Like Charlotte's Agent lets you play, 8 Cascaders in 3 colors, and like Charlotte's Agent's also pretty good. But boy, is Violent Outburst just like has just quietly been one of the best cards in Modern for years and years and years. Yeah, but there's definitely like the dark era. We talk about the dark times a lot, and the dark times was like right when I started to stream, and so I'm like really happy that it feels like we're through them for now. As far as set design, dark times goes, but it's like, I think it all started with War of the Spark. War of the Spark and Core Set 20 was Omnath Field of the Dead, right? Or was that 21? But then Throne of Eldraine, Modern Horizons is also here. Then you have Theros Beyond Death, which like broke Pioneer in half with Thassa's Oracle, and Underworld Breach, broke Legacy, Uro, Croaks is fine, but there's another big card. Heliod also, like the Heliod was also super format defining card. Ikora with the Companions. So I think 2020 was Veil of Summer, then 2021 is Omnath Field of the Dead. I may be misremembering. And then I kind of think since Zendikar things have been pretty good, I don't really hate the MDFCs. I think the MDFC decks are fine, but I think Zendikar, Kaldheim, Strixhaven, MH2, Adventures Forgotten Realms, Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow have all been pretty good. Obviously not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but they've all been pretty good. We're on the draw against Living End. I'm going to mulligan this hand. No one lander, no lander. Just basic swamp. I guess I have to keep this though, and not like it that much. Can you play Takenuma this? I think your mana is just too bad to want to play the channel lands here. Red Source would be so good here. Is Crimson Vow the least memorable set in the last decade? Not in the last decade. That's Ixalan for sure. I don't even like Rivals of Ixalan, the other Ixalan. I don't know. I'm always so mean to Ixalan. I needed to let it go, but boy, do I hate that block. I'll take the 0 mana cycler. Maybe I just want to make them lose 2 life. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, we also had Chandra Dress to kill. Yeah, you had like a handful of like semi-playable modern cards. I'm still like actually like really liking Epicer lately. As Kanta saw some play. Here's like the unfortunate truth. And I'm also like not only talking about like through the frame of Modern. That's not the only lens I evaluate cards in. I really also disliked. I was a big Standard player when Ixalan came out, and I really disliked it then too. And like Search for Escanta was fine, but here's also the band-aid that you need to rip off as a Modern player. Search for Escanta has never been good in Modern. I know that people played it. It was never good in control decks. It was always like every single time your blue-white control opponent played Search for Escanta on turn 2, you just felt like you were ahead. It was kind of the same things like when Grixis Shadow played Serum Visions, like all of a sudden, boom, I'm just ahead. Man, this stinks. We had 1 lander, no lander into our 5-card hand. I think we had to keep that, hope to draw a land. It feels so bad. Yeah, Search for Escanta has never been playable in Modern. I know that people did play it, but it was always the worst card in that deck by a lot, in my opinion. Escanta late game OG, but that's the thing. It's like so many cards are good in the late game. You know what I mean? It's like that's never been the issue control decks have had, is that they're good in the late game. Playing against Giganta? I don't know if they were playing against Shadow here. Shadow's been playing Giganta a lot lately. Cool. Okay, we'll keep the Ragavan so we have something to do next turn. Also Dragon's Maze. So I have like nothing but love for the RTR block. I know that a lot of people really disliked Dragon's Maze, but you know, it was a small set, and to like kind of complement the rest of like what was like the most exciting standard format ever, you know, just like my favorite standard format ever. And so it is true, like, it didn't have that many interesting, impactful cards necessarily, but I just have, like, such a fond memory of that era that I have a hard time, like, saying anything bad about it. There were some good cards, too. And another thing about Dragon's Maze is that there weren't any cards I hated, either. Like, maybe it was, like, a little underpowered, but, like, underpowered doesn't necessarily mean unexciting. I also love drafting it, too. I guess that's also a big reason why I liked it, is that that was really when I got into Limited, was Dragon's Maze, Gatecrash, RTR. And I don't know if this is like a common opinion, but I really, really liked that format where like I thought Dragon's Maze was so good to lead on, and then you would kind of get the direction for which guilds you wanted to explore in your Gatecrash and your Return to Ravnica packs. Yeah, Maze was really cool. I think like, the flavor of a lot of the cards was really cool, but like if your set's underpowered, it needs at least to be flavorful. And like I really disliked the flavor of Ixalan. Just like there's pirates, there's dinosaurs, go nuts. There's no story. There's probably a story, but I don't know. It just felt so gimmicky. There's pirates, there's dinos, go crazy. If that's your thing, that's fine. I just wasn't that into it. Yeah, but you'd have all these like awesome like mythics like open in your draft pool, like Master of Cruelty, Ralzeric, Progenitor Mimic was awesome in your sealed pools. Aetherling was crazy. I loved. I also played. I also played green white all standard too. I played green white like all standard, and actually Dragon's Maze was huge for me because I played Voice of Resurgence, Advent of the Worm. Like it was actually a big buff to my pet deck, surprisingly. Oh man, Progenitor Mimic was crazy to start with. Oh man, I'm just getting so nostalgic for this era. I don't think Kaito's that bad for me. I'll take the Kolaghan's command. I could be wrong about the Kaito here, to be honest. Savageboard Hydra, I love this card. I remember I liked Blood Scrivenger too, because I couldn't evaluate cards at the time. Boros Battleshaper was awesome and limited. Dragon Shift was a really cool card. These split cards actually ended up showing up in Modern later. Crash, Catch, Release, Breaking, Entering, back when Brain in the Jar is the name of the card, worked differently. Pontiff of Blight was an awesome limited card. Wasn't that good, but it was so fun. Lavinia the 10th, Possibility Storm. Yeah, I Rurik Thar, legacy card. These split cards, Far Away, Fire Ice, were like really, really cool and standard. They saw a lot of play. Sane Collector was my best friend's favorite card. I love Tristani's Summoner. There's Wear Tears also here. I feel like this set gets a bad rap, to be honest. And here, let me go to Bauble myself. Or no, I'll Bauble my opponent. And so if I see something really good like that, I will kill the ninja token. And if I didn't see like an iteration on top, I would just be okay trading Ragavan for a token. Yeah, I feel like Dragon's Maze gets a bad rap. I don't know. I like the set a lot. What can I say? I guess I've already said it. Oh yeah, Sire of Insanity. Yeah, the cards are all really cool. I know that they were like not that impactful in Modern. I don't know. They had Wear Tear, Wear Tear, Voice of Resurgence. Voice used to be really popular. Have you played any Kami Limited? I haven't. I really want to though. It's just kind of tough when like I used to like so like I was saying, I got really into Limited then during Dragon's Maze, and then I didn't enjoy Theros Standard as nearly as much as RTR Innistrad because it just got solved so quickly. So I ended up doing like a lot of like Limited in Theros. I got really into Limited in Theros, but I was enjoying Theros and like Born of the Gods Limited, but like those were actually like pretty mediocre Limited formats overall. I feel, since they were just like. So like there was such like it was I think pretty bad design in retrospect, that there were so many decks that were all about building a big creature with heroic, making a giant creature, and there was just such little removal. You know what I mean? There was just like no removal, and but I kind of got like more into EDH back then because like the Limited format wasn't that good and the Standard format wasn't that good. I got really into EDH at the time. Yeah, you did have Boonsader. The Saving Grace. I think I might actually just cut all the discard spells for the Terminates and the Endurances here. Kind of like this. Maybe I'll play Inquisition over Terminate. Get the curve lower. Kind of light on answers to Shadow though. Let's do this. Hero's Downfall. Yeah, but here, yeah, for in the context of Limited, right? Like Hero's Downfall was a rare, and so like Hero's Downfall was like the second best card in the set because removal was so scarce. Removal was so important. Like you would have like 6 mana sorcery speed as like the best way to kill creatures, super playable in that deck. Yeah, Elspeth's Sun's Champion was also a messed up card. That card used to see like a decent amount of play in Modern too. I actually have registered Elspeth's Sun's Champion in like plenty of Modern tournaments, and like in both in Blue White and Jeskai, and then like Bant Eldrazi. I remember there was like a big debate. Oh no, I meant to cast the Heat here. Well, I guess we're playing Channeler first. There was like a big debate back then talking about like what was the best late game for the control decks, like Sphinx's Revelation or Elspeth's Sun's Champion, and I was like really firmly. I'm gonna keep the Unearth, I think, because I think this is gonna die. I was really firmly in the Elspeth's Sun's Champion camp, and then some writer put it really well. I can't remember who it was. It was Chapin. I can't remember, but they said that if you're gonna spend 6 mana for something in Modern, it should just be Elspeth's Sun's Champion because there's nothing better. And it's kind of, why not both? Because you just couldn't afford to play like that high a curve in Modern back then. But it's just like Elspeth's Sun's Champion was just like the best late game back then. It was just like if you're gonna spend 6 mana on a Revelation or 6 mana on an Elspeth was just so much more impactful. But you know, times have definitely definitely changed from that that statement, I think. Oh, opponent kept a 1-lander. Got a Heat on top. Okay, so don't love this, but I'm just going to play the Catacombs. They're not drawing a land, which is good for me. And they're going to heat my Channeler, and then that's going to give me Delirium to heat their Channeler. Yeah, I have lost more games to Gideon, Ally of Zendikar than any other card in Magic, I think. I played a lot of Standard in that time, and I played a lot of Control decks in that time, and just Gideon, Ally of Zendikar would just constantly destroy me. Like the control decks are really good against like the the Aetherworks Marvel decks back then, and they were like medium against the green black decks. And those matchups were really fun, and you just like actually couldn't beat vehicles because Gideon was just too good. Yeah, it has been a fun stream, just kind of reminiscing a little bit. I do enjoy getting a little lost in the sauce about the past sometimes. I feel like Uncle Rico. I think that with my opponent being kind of mana screwed, I'm probably supposed to try to get a little bit more value out of my cards here. Just take a little bit more time. If I draw a green source next turn, I can main phase the Endurance, then get some card advantage of the Pyro. I guess I could have also gone Seasoned Pyromancer, discard Endurance, try to unearth it. That could have been better. Opponent's still missing their land drops, which is great for me. I did draw the green source, so we're going to go ahead and main phase the Endurance to try to not walk into a Heat or Drown. Or I guess not Drown. Drown countering the Endurance. They can still just kill it. Ysoka beat Vehicles with control 1 PT Aether. I mean, yeah, Ysoka is great, but like I do remember watching that and I'm like, wow, I can't believe he beat Vehicles. That matchup was so bad. I remember like I was playing a lot of PPTQs back then, and I lost like 2 win and ends to top 8 in a row against Vehicles playing control. The Esper Charm is utterly busted. My evaluation of the Esper Charm is that it's like pretty fringe playable, but it is cool. I could be wrong too. It's like fine and playable. It's my current evaluation. I could be undervaluing it. The fact that it kills Ren and 6 into Fairy is pretty big. Counters Cascade decks. Dude, I'm just top decking mono Endurances and my opponent can't find a second land this whole game. Esper Charm can reanimate Ashiok in response to fetch. Okay. You have to have an Ashiok in your deck. You have to have Ashiok in your deck, and the Ashiok has to be in your graveyard. And then, like, if you want to stop a fetch land activation for 3 mana or 2, you can Nimble Obstructionist and actually get a card, I guess. I don't know. It's not selling me on the card very well. I do think the card is playable, but it's just going to be like pretty fringe playable, I think.